All right. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully, you guys can hear me all right. If you can't, somebody please message me, or obviously, you can't message me if you can't hear me. Nailed it. But do let me know if you guys can hear me, just so I can go ahead and continue. Yes. All right. Thank you, Carmen. I appreciate that. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Fernando. Awesome. I appreciate it. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here, guys. Give me just 1 second, and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm going to need your input one more time. If you guys can just message me if you can see my screen. I'm logged into the MMC demo account. I've got 1,200 accounts here. All right, perfect. Thank you, Angelica. Appreciate that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Just a quick introduction. My name is Zika. I am one of the dedicated customer success managers over here at Map My Customers. And today's topic is we're actually going to be going through team management, how to build a team account on Map My Customers, how to kind of monitor and track your reps' progress through the system, and some tips and tricks along the way to kind of get the most out of the tool as a team manager. So having said that, just a quick step back in time to kind of understand where we came from with the legacy platform and coming onto the Apollo platform. So one of the challenges coming from the legacy platform was building out a team that reflected the actual organizational structure, right? So the concept of having multiple different team segments wasn't really existing. The concept of having multiple different levels to a hierarchy didn't really exist. Really, the only thing you could do in the teams section was pretty much just share information and add team members to your team, right? So what we did with the Apollo platform, and let me go ahead and just jump into the team management section to kind of explain what we did, is that we gave you the ability to not only create teams, but we also have team managers and team members to allow different access rights. We have a team owner account, which kind of oversees everything, basically giving you guys the ability to hopefully build in the same structure that you have within your organization to build it into the Map My Customers platform. So just kind of a quick walkthrough. Again, the way I got here was just from the dashboard on the home screen. Just click on the Manage button on the left-hand side. So just click into here. And now I'm on the team management portal. So you can see a couple of different things here off the bat. One, you can see the team owner account is demo at Map My Customers, right? Underneath that, we have one team, which is called Map My Customers. We have one team, which is called West Coast. And we have a number of team members on each team. These team members here with this bright red icon with the exclamation mark in the middle, these are members that have not been verified. And so just a couple notes here. Obviously, when someone is not verified, I'm not able to share things with them. I'm not able to grant them access rights. I'm not able to check user tracks. I'm really not able to engage with that user until they become verified. The only thing you can do is resend the invitation, or you can just delete the user if that was a mistake. So just a quick note, if you see members on your team who have this red icon and who aren't verified, you can either, ping them, just let them know basically to follow the prompts. It should be, I'm sure all of you kind of have went through this and seen what it looks like. It should be a pretty straightforward process to get verified. You just have to put in your password and put in some basic information, to get connected. So you can go ahead and just resend those links. What I'm going to do now is just kind of build out a new team so you can see kind of the process and hopefully answer some questions for you guys. So all you're going to do here is click add member up here in the top right. You can add individually or you can add in bulk. I'm just going to add individually to keep it simple for right now. And then I'm going to build a team. So when you go here, you can select from either of the existing teams or you can add a new team. I'm going to click add new team. It's going to prompt you to put in the new team name, and I'm just going to put in the Justice League. All right, perfect. Now I have to put in an email address here, so I'm just going to put Batman at thejusticeleague.com. Obviously, I don't own that email address, but it's going to send out an email to that email address if it existed, and then they would have to get verified to become a team member, right? So you can either add them as a team manager or a team member. Let's go ahead and just add as a team manager for now. And there you go. So now I have 3 teams on this org. I've got Map My Customers, West Coast, and the Justice League. And now, whenever I add a team member, you'll see that I can add them to all 3 of those teams, right? So Map My Customers, West Coast, the Justice League. So pretty simple process for creating a new team. And now I can go ahead and add all the team members I want. The next thing I want to kind of explain is the differences between a team member and a team manager. And it looks like we have someone asking a question here. Should our teams be in the system already? Jay, if you could kind of clarify that, basically you would have to build out the teams for your individual users, kind of the process that I'm going through right now. I'm not honestly sure if your particular team's already built out. If you have a dedicated CSM, then they can typically help you with that. Also, just a quick note, guys, we will have a Q&A at the end of the call here. So definitely feel free to take note of your questions, and hopefully I can get to all of them at the end. Appreciate that. So the difference between team manager and team member. So a team manager, as you can see here, reset the pass 1, 2, 3 is a team manager on this account or on this team, and then there's team members on the other ones. So one big difference is you can add a team manager to multiple teams. This is one of the unique abilities of a team manager. So you can see here, this email address is also on the West Coast team. And then if I go to the Justice League and I click this little plus button, let me see here, reset passes there as well. So I can go ahead and add them as a team manager to this team as well. So now this email address or this user is a team manager on all 3 accounts. The reason that you're able to do this is obviously some person could oversee multiple territories, but they want to keep their teams separated. There's a number of different use cases for that, but basically kind of building that ability into the team manager section is different than the team member section. Another big difference is that a team manager will by default have access to all of the data for these teams that they're a member of. So now that Reset Pass is a member of all 3 teams, he should have access to all of the data across this org, right? Because he's a member of every team that exists. So anybody who creates any data, he should have access to. For the team members' perspective, the only thing that they'll be able to see is the information that's shared with them, right? So this is an individual user here. If I click share, they have they have a number of different groups that are shared with them. They can't see anything outside of those groups, and that's across accounts, contacts, deals, account routes, contact routes, and territories as well. So the only information that a team member can see is the information that has been shared with them or the information that they have created themselves. So if they go through and they add, accounts, contacts, deals, if they just kind of add one-off information, or if maybe they're using lead generation, then that's the only way that they would have access to additional information. But they shouldn't be able to see other team members' information. So hopefully that makes sense for you guys. So I kind of just jumped into it, touching on that point, but the way to share access is in this little column here. There's share buttons across every team member that is verified. When you click into these, it'll open up the share portal on the right-hand side, right? So you can see here, I can share pins with natalie.mapmycustomers@gmail. You can see all the different groups that we have structured in Map My Customers. That's actually an important note here, is that the way to share information across accounts, contacts, deals is via groups. So that's why I'm guessing if you've had conversations with your CSM, groups are so important in Map My Customers, is because not only it's a way to organize and categorize your accounts, contacts, and deals, but it's also the primary way to get information to your team members. So the way you do it is super simple. Let's say I know that Natalie is in charge of the Atlantic region. I can just go ahead and check these check boxes here, and she should now have access to that data. There's no save button. There's nothing like that. So you just check those boxes, and then I can move on to contacts, for example, and maybe she needs to see Louise's contacts, deals. Maybe she needs to see a deal group 1. So you can just kind of click through here and give her access to the things she needs to have access to. And then separate from share, so share is giving people the ability to view data, right? So these records, these accounts, contacts, deals that we've created in Map My Customers, you can give people access to that information via the share section. The next part of this is access rights, which I want to kind of clarify is different from share in the sense that access rights is giving them the ability to interact with these records in different ways. So share is giving them access to those records. Access rights is giving them the ability to engage with those records in different ways. So to kind of make my point here, when I click into access rights, you can see that I can allow user to edit shared accounts, allow user to export shared accounts, and allow user to delete shared accounts. So these are basically permissions on how they can engage with these different entities that we've created, right? So if I want to have my group have the ability to edit accounts, maybe they are going through the field and they're getting new information, like they're getting updated contact details, maybe they're getting updated address information, and I want them to be able to edit that. And then maybe I also want them to be able to pull reports so that they can, kind of get insights into what's going on with their accounts, contacts, deals. So I want them to be able to pull reports, but maybe I don't want them to delete shared accounts, right? So I'm not going to click this one. And then you have to do this for each entity, right? So if that's for accounts, I can go to contacts, maybe do the exact same thing here. I can do the same thing for deals, right? Same thing for routes. And you can kind of see it goes on and on, right? So it's important to make these considerations as you're setting up your team, as far as there are some organizations that are set up where it's, a completely open forum. Everyone has access to everything and everyone can do everything. There's complete trust, right? But sometimes, especially with larger organizations, you definitely have to put some sort of limiters, barriers. So that's why you have the ability to kind of toggle that on and off here. And of course, even after you set up your teams, you can always come back in and make changes later on. So hopefully that makes sense as well. All right, so that's how you grant access rights. We also saw that you can add team members here. So these might have been team members that we might have deleted, or maybe they're managers. You can see managers across different accounts I can add to existing teams. You can also delete a team, right? So deleting this team will remove all members from the team and data associated with the team. So you can at one time just delete a team, and you can also manage the members in the sense of giving them different permissions between team manager and team member. So for example, if I want Reset Pass to be a team member, or if I want MSNIF to be a team manager, you can just toggle those on and off here. And you can also remove individual team members. So if I just want to, remove Ryan Leahy, for example, now that team member should no longer be there, right? So it should be pretty straightforward. It's also important to note that even though I've removed him from here, that person isn't deleted entirely. I can still go back in and add them later on. So he should still be in there, right there. And I could re-add him to the team. Of course, he won't have access to anything after I delete him. He won't be able to do anything in the account. But I could add him back in just by clicking on the plus icon next to the team. I can add him back into this team. Or for example, if I made a mistake and added him to the wrong team, I can maybe go down to the Justice League and add him to the correct team. Right, so that might be a reason that you want to delete a team member and then add him to the right team. So hopefully all that makes sense to you guys. If you do have any more questions about kind of building a team in the team management section, or sharing or access rights or anything like that, definitely feel free to comment a question, and hopefully we can get to it in the Q&A portion. But the next thing I want to jump into is actually, when you have your team built out, how do you interact with them, right? How do you understand kind of the day-to-day operations of your team? How do you gain insights into what's going on? So the first thing that obviously is going to be really, really helpful for this is the first screen you come into, right? The dashboard is a great place to get all the information you need. So the first thing you see when you get on here is obviously the center console. This is where you're going to get most of your information from. Of course, the team management section is on the left-hand side, we already talked about, and the recent activities section is on the right. The biggest thing that I think is going to be really, really helpful for you guys is this view by user toggle that we have at the top. So this, you're actually going to find across the application. You're going to find it on the accounts map. You're going to find it on the contacts map, deals, activities. You're going to find it basically everywhere you would expect. And what this allows you to do is see Map My Customers from the user's perspective, right? So for example, if you're not sure how many accounts Natalie has access to, I'm going to toggle to view by user for Natalie, and I can see she can only see 21 accounts. And maybe I know as a team owner that she should have 300 accounts at least in her territory. So maybe there might be some recalibration. Maybe groups aren't set up the right way. Maybe I haven't shared the right things with her. So I can get with her and figure out kind of what's going wrong and what we need to change to get her access to the right information. So just at a base level, just being able to see what she sees is really, really helpful. But also at the same time, you can also track her specific completed activities for the week, her specific upcoming activities that she might have for a specific, list view, calendar view. You can kind of toggle that on and off as well. Her charts, so you can see charts across accounts, contacts, deals, activities. So let me see how her activities have been tracking over the last, 7 days, over the last 4 weeks, right? You can kind of toggle between all these different things. So this allows you to, again, see specifically, like kind of dig in to understand, okay, maybe Natalie didn't hit her target this month. Let me see what's going on. Let me understand why that is. It's two different things, whether she's putting in all the work and she's doing all the right things and it's just a slow month. That type of stuff happens. You don't get to close the deals that you thought were going to close. But if she's putting in the work and you can see she's putting in the work, that's totally fine. But if you go into the view mode, if view by user mode here for Natalie, and you see that she has no activities or one activity in the last 2 weeks, or she, hasn't added any new accounts, or she hasn't, created any new deals, then you can start to understand, okay, it's just, Natalie might not be putting in the effort that we need. So this could be coaching. This could be, a ton of different things, right? But this is a way to understand what's, behind the numbers. So you might see that she's low on her numbers. What's the cause of that? So view by user, again, is across the dashboard here. You can jump into the accounts map as well, and you can see view by user right here at the top. So you can see kind of what their map looks like. So if I wanted to switch over to Natalie to see those, 21 accounts she's got, I can see that she only has access to accounts in this area, whereas her territory might be, all of the East Coast. And so I might be missing out on giving her access to the Carolinas, access to Virginia, right? She might be missing out on a ton of information that I need to, figure out a way to get her access to, right? You can also find that same exact toggle in the activities section. So all users, I can toggle on Natalie. Again, we saw she doesn't have any activities, but you'll be able to see kind of what's been going on in her week. Let me see what incomplete activities she has. Let me see all of her activities. You can kind of toggle those things on and off to kind of really understand and dig a little bit deeper into what's going on. So that, I think, is a really, really powerful tool to understand individual users and to kind of do that coaching that we've talked about to try kind of understand what really is going on with a specific team member. So again, guys, if you do have any questions about what I'm going through, definitely feel free to take note of those. You can send them in the chat, or you can just wait until the Q&A session and ask them at the end, and hopefully we will get through to all of those. Okay, the next thing I want to take some time jumping into is the reports section. So when I jump into reports here, this is, again, a great tool for being able to dig in, really understand what's going on with your team, what's going on with a specific territory, what's going on with a specific team member, and pull all of the information that you need. So first and foremost, this is a few reports that we've built, just kind of laying the foundation for this. You can see all favorites and downloaded, and you see these star icons next to each report. So for example, if I'm, pretty constantly pulling the all accounts report, I can go ahead and click this star icon, and then it's going to show up in my favorites section. So I might have, 2 or 3 reports here that I pull, daily, weekly, whenever it is, that I have in the favorite section. And then I have all the reports I've ever built in this all section, right? And then of course you can filter these reports for specific entity types. So if I want to see all of my account reports, if I want to see all of my contact reports, you can click on the left-hand side here to get down into the specifics. But let's go ahead and walk through the process of creating a new report. So again, you can pull reports across accounts, contacts, deals, history, and activities. One pretty common report that a lot of people pull is an activities report, just to kind of understand, okay, what has my team been doing this week? Where can I jump in and help? What do we have to do to start planning for follow-ups and planning cadences to make sure that everyone's staying on top of their accounts? So let's go ahead and build a activities report. So just make sure you add a title here. That's the only required field. Description you don't have to put in, but you can if you'd like. And then you can go in here to select fields and select which fields you want pulled into this report. Obviously, there's a ton of information here. You might not need all of it to make the decisions you're looking to make, right? So maybe we only need name of the activity, the associated account, the activity type, the assignee, when it was completed, and maybe the note and the user, right? That might be all the information. I don't really need the created ad. I don't need modified. I don't need any of that. So click save here, and you can see all that information populates. It's important to note here that this is a preview mode. So you can see it kind of, caps out at 100 at the bottom here. This is a preview mode. To get the full download, you have to click save and then download. And we'll get to that in just a moment here. But the next thing you can do is you can actually take it a step further and filter this report for specific things, right? So if I want to see, show me all of my activities that have been completed in the last week, maybe. So I'm going to put it as maybe since last Thursday, add filter and apply. And you can see before it was something like 500. Now it's down to 16, right? These are the only 16 activities my team has done in the last week. And I can also take it a step further and filter for a specific user. So let me see here. I think that might be in a different section. But basically, you're able to filter for those. You're also able to filter for specific groups, basically pulling the information that you want. Once you're happy with it, you can go ahead and save the report. So click save, and then you can see I've got my activities report right here. If you hover over the right-hand side, you can either delete, download, or edit that report that you've just created. Or you can click into it and that download button will appear. So after you create the report and save the report, you can either click back into it to download, or again, just from the list view of all the reports, you can hover on the right-hand side. You can say I can do this over every report to pull the information that I need. So once you download it, it's going to send a CSV Excel file to your email inbox, and you can get the full details there. And of course, once you get an Excel, it's malleable. You can filter for specific things. You can organize it in a specific way to get the information you do need. So one thing that a lot of team managers do, or even team members, to be honest, is they'll pull a report at the end of every week to say, okay, who are the accounts that we hit this week? And then what do we have to do to schedule follow-ups with these people? What do we have to do to plan for the next week based off of these activities? What do we have to do to kind of make sure that everyone's hitting their goals, right? So if you pull an activities report and you see, again, that maybe there's some users who aren't hitting the marks as far as calls per day, calls per week, who aren't hitting the marks as far as, engagements or deals opened or whatever it is, right? You can kind of get access to all that information in a filtered manner, kind of leaving out the clutter when you're selecting your fields there, to get the information that you're looking for. So hopefully that's pretty helpful for everyone as well in the report section. And again, feel free to put questions in the chat box. Feel free to kind of take note, and we can get to all of those in the Q&A. All right. So I think that should be everything that I wanted to go through for right now. So we can go ahead and jump into the Q&A section. So if anyone has any questions about team management, about view by user across the entire platform, about building a report, editing reports, anything like that, feel free to either put it in the chat box or kind of raise your hand. I think there's like a virtual raise your hand, and hopefully we'll be able to get to those. So let me see what I have here. Can we create two different managers into the same team? Yeah, great question. So let me go ahead and jump back into the team management section. Again, just go to your dashboard and click on manage on the left-hand side here. Perfect. All right. So right now, actually at the bottom here, you can see we do have two team managers in this section. But right now, like I said, this reset-to-pass123@gmail.com is a team manager across every team. So not only can you have the same person be the team manager across every team, but you can also click on the plus button next to each of it, and you can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different possible managers, I can add, 2 different ones to this top team here. So now I have 3 different managers on this same team. It's important to note that every manager has access to everything, right? There's not a way to segment information between managers on the same team. And so if there are different kind of subsets or different ways that they manage this team, it might be best to divvy it up into multiple different teams. But if you do kind of have 3 team managers that work together, you can definitely have multiple team managers in the same team. Great question. Next one I got here is, how do we transfer accounts if a team member leaves to make sure the current data is not lost? Yeah, great question. So remember, we talked about sharing information with your team members. So let's say, for example, that MSNIF, just left the company. Unfortunately, sales does have a pretty high turnover rate. So what you do is you click into the section here, and you can see that he's got, all these different groups shared with him. These are the groups that he's created or that have been shared with him. So I can go ahead and just check all these off so that he no longer has access to that data. And you just have to make sure to get that across all the different entities here. So let me just make sure that Matt doesn't have access to anything anymore. All right, great. And then when you add the new team member, so I would just recommend kind of getting rid of that account. When you add the new team member, then you can just go ahead and share all of the appropriate information with them, and they'll have access to all the same accounts. This is actually one of the reasons that Map My Customers is so good for onboarding, is that imagine being a new team member in a new area. You can immediately understand kind of where the hotspots are for all of your accounts. You can immediately understand all of the previous engagements that have been happening with this account through the activities section. You can have a pretty good idea of what status that account might be in, and immediately start tackling things. So the only thing you need to learn when you're a new team member at your company is, what's the product? How do I sell this specific product? And you don't need so much information about your actual accounts. So hopefully that answers that question. I appreciate them coming. What is user tracks is the next question I have here. So user tracks is a tool to be able to kind of see where your team members have been over a certain period of time. So just seeing kind of how they're moving through their territory. Unfortunately, these are demo accounts, so all of these user tracks won't exist. I think the full length of a user track capability is 7 days. And so I am very confident that no one's been signed into any of these accounts in the last 7 days, so I wouldn't be able to see anything here. But if your team members have been active and they have been using their location settings or have their location settings enabled, you should be able to check user tracks to kind of see how they've been moving through a territory and what accounts have they been engaging with, where have they been via the user track section. Great question. All right, next question here is filter by user. Can you send instructions for that in the report section? Could you please clarify this question? Are you asking in the report section, is there a way to filter for a specific team member? Yes. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and jump into reports here. One of the most frustrating things about Zoom is that bar that pops up at the top and just covers up this entire area. I know you guys can't see it, but I've had to move around maybe 3 or 4 different times in this call. Okay. So your question is, you want to be able to filter for a specific user. So let's go ahead and jump into this activities report that we just created. I know, let me just check here. Activity type. So let me make sure I have the right field selected. Name, account, activity type, assignee. Gotcha. So it looks like with specific activities reports, you're not able to filter by user. But what I would just recommend is once you download the data and get it into an Excel file, you can filter everything there. And I can walk you through that process right now if you'd like as well, just kind of on Excel, how to filter things. Would that be helpful for you, Angelica? It's okay. All right. Next one I got here. Thank you again for that question. The next one I've got here is for a region. We have the regional and district managers, but not all need access to the same things. Can this be managed by access through members only? Trying to think through that question here. So basically, you've got people who are in a region and a district. So I'm guessing those are different subsets of one another, and they have to have access to different things. Yes. Okay. So then, if that's the case, what you could do is just create different teams, and then have them like create a team for the manager and a team for the district manager, but have the district manager be a manager on both, so he can see everything. But the regional manager, I'm sorry, can see everything, but the district manager could only see his team's information. That's kind of a specific use case. We can take that offline if you'd like, and we can kind of walk through what I'm talking about. But I think there's a way that you could do that. All right. The next question I've got here is, what's the difference between user, team member, and group? Okay. So just broad strokes here. A user is anybody who has login credentials on Map My Customers. So the team owner is a user, the team managers are users, the team members are users, right? So there shouldn't be kind of a way to distinguish that in Map My Customers. Typically, the way we distinguish things among users is with those classifications of team owner, team manager, and team member. Team member is usually kind of your sales reps, your AMs, your team that's out in the field engaging with the customers. Those are the guys who have, kind of a narrow focus. They've got their own accounts that they're trying to tackle. They've got their own territory. They've got their own, they kind of live in their bubble, right? They need to see what they need to see, and they kind of have to have access to that. The team manager is, let's just jump back into the team manage section here as well. So the team manager in this case, Batman, of course, can see access to every team member on his account, and he can see kind of the activities that they've been doing. He can see all of their accounts, contacts, deals. He can see how they've been engaging, how they've been moving through their territory, and he can, coach and really understand what's going on with his team, but only for this team, right? Unless you make him a manager on the other teams, he won't be able to see what's going on the West Coast or with the Justice League. The team owner is kind of the org owner, and they can see everything across every team, across every account. They can filter for everybody on here, and they can see everything that's happening. So the only difference between the team owner and the team manager is that the team managers can only see the teams they're a part of. If you put a team manager on every team, then there's basically no difference between the team owner and the team manager. As long as the team manager can see everything, then you can kind of there's really no discernible distinction between the team owner and the team manager. Great question. And then groups are a whole other thing. So basically, groups within Map My Customers are basically a way to segment and filter all of your different records. So you can create groups across accounts, contacts, and deals. And what those allow you to do is, let's go ahead and jump into the account section here. If I click on filters up here in the top right, you can see I've got all these different groups right here. So I've got, Matt, Zika, Louise, the Georgia region, Carolina region, Dallas region. You can filter for any one of these groups, right? So if I want to say, okay, I want to see, let me go ahead and reset my filters because it looks like I had something applied there. I want to see just Louise's pins, right? So I'm going to go ahead and apply filters, and everything else should be filtered out. So it looks like Louise doesn't have access to any pins, which sounds about right. Anyone who knows Louise, he should not have access to things. So you can go ahead and kind of group things up in order to filter for things. And you can also, like we talked about, groups is the primary way that you share information with your team. So again, if I jump back into the team management section here, when I click on share for a specific team member, all of these little check boxes here are different groups. And so when I check the box, that means that specific team member, in this case, Zika, now has access to these groups that I've created. So groups are not only a way to segment and categorize all of your different accounts, contacts, and deals, but it's also the primary way that you can share access to those different things. Does that make sense? Hopefully I answered your question, Carol. All right. Does anyone else have any questions? I think we got through most of them. Let me do a double check here. Okay, so I see some questions in the Q&A section as well. What if we have two field teams, one that manages sales accounts and the other team that focuses on field visits? Okay, so Ed, great question. What I would say there is you can kind of segment things into two different teams, right? So we've got um, one team here that's Map My Customers and one team here that's West Coast. We can share the same information with those accounts, right? But maybe you have two different sales managers who kind of manage those different teams and have access to what that team is doing. So it's one thing to segment the access to the data. So as far as accounts, contacts, and deals, it's another thing to segment the activity, like the in-app activity that people are doing. So we can share the same information with this Map My Customers team and West Coast team, but these guys up here are going to be creating different routes. They're going to be logging different activities that this team manager is going to want to see than the other team. These guys are going to have their own unique routes, their own unique activities that this manager is going to want to see. So it's not about what information, it's about how they're engaging with that information. So hopefully that answers your question. And then he also asked, are we recording this tutorial? Absolutely. We recorded it from the beginning. So this is going to be, I think, up on our website probably pretty soon here. And I can also make sure to make sure everyone has access to it. But this is being recorded, so everyone will have access to it afterwards. All right. Anything else, guys? This is kind of an open forum at this point. If you have any questions, obviously, about team management, about reporting, about view by user, or if you have questions about anything else about my customers, I'm happy to help. All right. So we have another question here. How do you add new accounts or update new information on old ones? Okay, great question. So one big thing that you can do is obviously via the import section is mass upload information, right? So if I'm, just back on the home screen here, this is a universal navigation bar up top here. So if you're on any screen, you'll be able to see this. In the top right here, there's a plus button. So if you click on that, as the team owner, you'll be able to import information, right? So you can mass upload Excel, CSV files, and you can, with the upload, kind of upload groups as well. So kind of upload the way that they're categorized. And that's a way to just in mass put new information on the system. So some people, for example, will buy, account data and they can just upload that, or maybe they're bringing information over from some other system. They can definitely upload that as well. So that's kind of getting information into the system in mass. And then if you're just doing one-offs, like let's say you're in the field and you find a new account, or you are at an account that's already existing and you meet a new contact at that account, you can just one-off create a new record. So let me go ahead and just walk through that process. Again, just click plus account name. So this is going to be a test one account. Add all the relevant information you have. You can add some custom field data. You can maybe assign them to whatever groups, and then save the account. So now this is a new entity that exists. Right now, it doesn't have any address information or any information at all, really. but this is now a new account that exists. I can start logging activities against it. I can create a route for it. I can, associate contacts and deals. So that's pretty much how you create a new entity. And then as far as editing, you can click into any account at any time. So this is one that I just created. Let me go ahead and delete it though. But you can click into any account at any time and make changes to it on the fly. That's one of the benefits of obviously having a mobile-based solution, is that while you're in the field, your team members can jump into, as long as you've given them access rights to be able to edit their records, they can jump into the account. And let's say they, find out a new phone number. Let's say they, find a new email address, or maybe they moved locations that are at a new address. You can update that information. Let's say you meet, like I said, a new person and you want to associate a new contact to this account. You can go ahead and add a new account on the fly here. Obviously, I'm showing all of you this on the desktop, but the same functionality exists in the mobile app as well. So they can make changes, they can update information, they can add notes, they can, change any custom fields here. All that information is updatable on the fly. And so hopefully that kind of answers your question there. All right. Next one I've got here is, can you use a Google Map code in the address field to mark location? So I'm not familiar with Google Map codes, but basically the way that you can add address information is when you are, let's say I'm creating a new record here. Let's go ahead and go back to that page. Just click plus button, add account. You should be able to click this target icon to map to your current location. So this is our Manhattan office. If anyone wants to pay us a visit, feel free. You can kind of click this target icon next to the address button, or if this is even an existing record, you could do that same thing to update the address information. So if you're at the account and you want to update it that way, you can do that, or you can just kind of type in the address information. But to be honest, I'm not familiar with Google Map codes. And so if you can kind of, educate me on that, that'd be great. All right. Next thing I've got here is, will the address information automatically load when a rep checks in? Okay, so this is a bit of a difficult question to answer because I'm not exactly sure what it is that you're asking. But there's two different pieces here that I kind of want to cover. When a team member is out in the field, and this is something that you guys can enable, we have what's called automatic visits. So each address or each location has kind of what we call a geofence built around it. And there's a certain radius, I think it's 30 meters around that if they're within that radius for a certain amount of time, a minimum of 5 to 10 minutes, I would say, then it will log an automatic visit, kind of notifying you guys that, yes, this team member was actually there. However, that's a specific type of visit, right? It's an auto visit, and there's no way to make changes to that. The important note here is that they would, whenever they're creating their own activities, let's say I go to the activities section here and I, add an activity. If I'm logging a visit, even if I was in the field, right? If I was logging a visit and I added the account at my customers, this is going to associate to that account, but I have to actually add that account information for it to be associated. So it's not going to automatically populate this information because I'm at the location when I'm logging an activity, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if I answered your question, Angelica, so if you could kind of clarify for me, that'd be great. But hopefully I kind of touched on that at least a little bit. All right, the next one I've got here is the information inputted on accounts before the recent update on the site still available? Okay, so I'm guessing you are asking about the transition from the legacy platform onto the Apollo platform. And if that's the case, you should have been migrated over and all of your information should still be intact coming over from the old system to the new system. So you should have access to all the same accounts, contacts, deals, notes, attachments. All that information should still be there. So if it's not, definitely let us know. But all the information was migrated over. All right. Next one I've got here is, How can you sort activity information so auto check-ins and manual check-ins for the same customer are next to each other to do easier cross-check verification? That is a great question. So they should, okay, they should be next to each other if they were done at the same time. So one challenge is that when people are when someone's engaging with an account, like they're at the location and an auto visit is logged, they should be logging their activity in a quick relatively quick succession, right? So if the auto visit is logged, you would expect the next activity to be logged to be the actual activity that they created. But often that isn't the case, right? Often our reps kind of go home, they log their activities at the end of the day, even though we ask them to do it, in the field. So that's definitely a challenge. But what I would say is that when you are, and let me go ahead and get out of Natalie's account here. When you are looking through your accounts, and again, there's not any auto visits here. Let's say I see an auto visit and I see the associated account. I can click into that account. So if I'm on this demo right now, it'll have the associated account underneath. If I click into that account, you'll see all of the associated activities listed on that account record. So when I go down to the activities, you can see I've got an upcoming demo. Let's see if they have any overdue or completed. No, they do not. But you can see all the associated activities with this account. So I could see here meeting logged on November 20th, and I should be able to see right underneath it auto visit logged on November 20th. So all that information should be on the account record. So that should be a pretty easy way to verify that the things that they say they're doing, they're actually doing. All right. The old version of MMC had a field for point of contact for an account when adding a new account. This version doesn't have that field from what I can see. Is there a field for a specific point of contact info outside of just adding a general note? Great question. So this is actually one of the biggest differences coming over from the legacy platform to the Apollo platform. Is on the legacy platform, when you looked at the map, first of all, there was just one map. And it kind of, every pin on that map stood for multiple things, right? If you were looking at a pin, it could be the account, it could be the contact, it could be multiple contacts. Really, there wasn't really a way to discern what that pin stood for in a effective manner. And so one of the biggest changes, like I said, coming over to the Apollo platform is that now we have the separation of accounts, contacts, and deals. And so when you're building a new account, let's say I'm just building a new account here, just adding some information. So again, I'm just going to add test to account. You can add all the data here and then save. Now, instead of a field that says, primary contact or point of contact, you can actually add its own contact record, right? So I can go add contact here, new contact, and I can add in that contact's information, right? So this is John Smith. Inherit the address information from the account. The account doesn't actually have any address information, but you can kind of put that information there, save. Give it a second here. Excuse me. Okay. So let's try that one more time. We're going to add a new account or new contact, John Smith, save. And there we go. So John Smith has now been created. You can save the changes there. And now this is the associated contact to this test account that we've built. And so you can just go down and you can actually click into this contact to pull up the contact record. So you can see this is edit contact. This is John Smith, the contact name. The associated contact or the associated account is right here. So if I add a phone number, for example, 704-822-3456, right? That's a new number. This number is supposed to be John's information, right? So when I click onto John's account or John's contact record, all the information available should be John's information. What you could do is you could do this, and then you could also, let me just jump back into the account here. you could also create a custom field called, you know, point of contact or primary contact, and you could just have John's name listed in there. Because what could be the case is you have multiple contacts associated here, and you want to automatically know who's the primary person there, who's the person that I need to be reaching out to. And so you can put a custom field here that instead of industry, it says point of contact. And then you put John's name in there. And so that means when you go down here and you see John, Kelly, Steven, Ryan, you see all these different people listed out, you'll know who the point person is for you to reach and reach out to and kind of engage with this account. So hopefully that answers your question there. Next one I've got here is, can the contact title become visible when looking at the account without clicking on various contact names to find out who is in engineering? All right. So I'm guessing what you're asking is when you have, when you're on an account record and you're looking at the contact section and there's multiple contacts associated to each account, these fields that come up, name, phone, email, address, city, state, you're asking if those are editable and you can kind of choose which fields show up here. Is that what you're asking, Joe? Could you kind of clarify that for me? Yes, awesome. So, unfortunately, that is not a capability that's currently built in the system, but we're continually iterating on this. So that type of feedback is really, really valuable for us. So that's, I mean, that's the type of customization I think that would be really, really helpful for customers. So if you're able to, what you're asking is if you're able to kind of, just to clarify for everyone, if you're able to, instead of name, phone, email, address, you could have name, maybe title, some other custom field that's really important for you guys, position, and then maybe phone number. You could have all of that listed here instead of having to click into the accounts. I think you're right. I think that would be very, very valuable for all of our customers. So that's definitely feedback, and all of this is being recorded, so our development team will definitely see this. So I think that's really, really awesome feedback for our team to take and run with. So I appreciate that, Joe. Thank you. All right. Great question, guys. Anything else? We do have, we're, kind of running up against the clock here, but I want to make sure we can get anything. All right. When you mark location button in an account profile, sometimes the pin appears a few blocks away. Why is this? And is there any way to edit this? What is the owner button at the top of the account profile screen? Okay. So that's a couple questions there. I'll get to the easy one first. The first one is the owner icon up here at the top. This is not a button. This is actually just to let you know who owns that account, meaning who created it. So either this was an account that was imported under the team owner section, or maybe a team member created an account. So if Batman went in and added a new account, or whatever scenario comes up, this is going to show you basically who's the owner of that account, not necessarily everyone who has access to it. So hopefully that answers your question there. And then your other question was, when you mark location button in an account profile, sometimes the pin appears a few blocks away. So I'm guessing what you're asking, and please clarify if I'm off base here, is when you're creating a new account. So let's go ahead and go back into that section as well. Creating a new account, logging the information here. When you click this target icon, you're saying sometimes it logs the wrong address information. Maybe it's a few blocks away. There's a number of factors that contribute to that, but unfortunately that's not really something that we have control over. Basically, it's based off of your cell reception. It's based off of your, basically any time that Google Maps would have you a few blocks away is where we mark you a few blocks away. We're enterprise partners with Google, so we kind of use their algorithm and their technology for a lot of the tools within Map My Customers. Location is definitely one of them, as well as routing, as well as a few other pieces. So whenever you mark this target icon and you're getting inaccurate information, either you can just make changes if okay, this isn't the right place. Maybe it's here, right? Maybe you just want to update that information there. You can just correct the information based off of just kind of typing it in, or you can try to get better cell reception. Excuse me, and try to update that information when you kind of have a better signal there. But there's a few different factors that contribute to that, and unfortunately, there's not really a ton that we can do about that. All right. Well, I think that's all we have right now. I don't see any more questions. And again, we're kind of up against the clock at this point, but hopefully this was a helpful session for you guys. Again, we kind of went through creating a new team management, reporting. Hopefully this was a helpful session for you. Again, my name is Zika. I'm one of the account managers over here at My Customers. Thank you guys so much for joining us on the webinar today. If you do have any more questions, definitely feel free to reach out. And again, this is all being recorded, so it will be available for you guys as a resource afterwards. So again, thank you guys so much for jumping on, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.